Despite all of the incredible technology we live in, I take great solace in how low-tech my job really is. I spend all day in here mixing liquid fat with crushed rock and then applying it to a flat surface with a stick covered with bristles at the end of the stick, trying to render space and light where there can't possibly be. Painting has never been more valid than it is right now, yet there are no algorithms, no data storage. When someone tells me to clear my cookies, I eat a sleeve of Oreos. I am not a Luddite. I understand and appreciate technology, but I also recognize how special our job really is. I am not an artist. I am not a painter. I'm not even a landscape painter. I am a Southern landscape painter who lives and works in New York City. That is my superpower under the sun. How specific can you make your job description? Last week, a couple of friends and I went to the Museum of Modern Art to see the Matisse cutouts, an exquisitely curated show. And you really see the working process up close. And what most people would consider mistakes and flaws, torn edges, drips of glue, are actually very carefully orchestrated and deliberate markings of a master. And it got me thinking about the interface between what it is I do here in my studio versus what I release out into the public for consumption. I want very much the mechanics of the way the painting came into being to be available to the viewer when they look at it. Thick paint with fingerprints and coagulated pigment and drips and scrapes. All of the parts of play that go on in my studio are all right there, right in front of the viewer, but under my strict control. Nothing gets out of here that is not very deliberately intended. And it's the reason that I hate restaurants with open kitchens. When I go to a restaurant, I want to sit down in a very carefully orchestrated experience and have a very intended, deliberate meal prepared for me and talk to the people that I'm with. I don't want to see the kitchen. I don't want to see pots of boiling potatoes and people running around. I've worked in kitchens. I want the front room experience, not the back room view. And that's very much why I pattern these videos after cooking shows. I love cooking shows. These videos are meant to be kind of a peek behind the curtain into the kitchen, into the process of play, all of the things that happen along the way, all of the missteps and the mistakes. And then what is released, what constitutes my exhibitions, is a very deliberate and carefully orchestrated front dining room experience. They are not allowed into the kitchen. Imagine a brand new deck of cards opened up and then dumped out onto a flat table. That's the way that I use color. I stack color like cards, all askew, layered on top of one another, just like cards on a table. What I'm doing is not painting abstract paintings, but representational paintings that are highly and fully dilated. Colors are brighter, more intense. Lines are exaggerated. Darks are darker. I work to both discover a place and craft it at the same time. Simultaneity is such a rich source of content, and that's what fascinates me about painting. Painting is the exaggeration of simultaneous events. On the left, notice this blue pole that traverses the entire span of the picture, off the top and off the bottom, establishing a firm foreground space. With that foreground space established, you can then proceed into the illusion of distance space. And that very much is the driver of my content, how far or how close up things appear from the eye of the viewer. This is beautifully done in Giovanni Bellini's St. Francis in the Desert. The content in large part is driven by the proximity of the forms to the viewer. And my favorite way to experience the landscape has always been laying on my stomach with my chin right in the dirt. It's a great way to get a bug's eye view, to get the smell of the earth in your nostrils, and to get that exaggerated foreground, which I really rely on. I laid down on my stomach in the Great Lawn in Central Park last summer, and a police officer made me leave. When I stack one form on top of another, I also have to consider what the space behind that form looks like. What does the air back there look like? Even though you can't see it, one of the jobs of a painter is to worry about the stuff that no one cares about. And the result, in the end, hopefully, is a very carefully crafted view that works from any angle, because the artist has already been in every possible nook and cranny before the painting even appears in front of the viewer. Jane Peterson does this beautifully. Her space is tilted and bent and massaged into a perfect whole that works from every vantage point, both conceptually, where you project yourself into the picture, and physically, where you actually stand in the room. Peter Bloom does this beautifully as well. And what I love about Peter Bloom is you often see an artist with something desperate to say, but they have lousy technique. Or you see a stunning technique, the ability to paint water droplets on a chicken, but they have nothing to say. It's rare that you get someone with the chops and a voice. And if you have both of those, then you have molten lava. Here's a time lapse of the largest painting I've ever painted. It's 15 feet wide, and it's called Meadow. It was a commission painted for two wonderful new collectors. Charles Bukowski, when asked to give advice to young writers, would often say, "Quit right now, you suck." And it's great advice, because if those words can break a writer, then they may as well give up and do something else. Whenever I hear a painter whine about there being nothing to paint, I tell them, just quit, just do something else. If you can fog a mirror, then you have subject matter. I tell painters two things: everything has already been painted, and no one cares. Those are perhaps the three most comforting words a painter can hear. No one cares. And when you know that in your heart, you can taste freedom. There's that story about how Bruce Springsteen met Clarence Clemons, his saxophone player. The story goes that in the early days, Springsteen and his band were having a lot of difficulty getting gigs, and they finally landed one in a bar only because they knew the owner. They played multiple sets to not very much success, and then left at 4 a.m, dejected and exhausted, out into the cold Jersey night, into the rain and the wind, to walk down the boardwalk to go home and go to sleep. And as they walked, they noticed in the distance a lone figure walking slowly toward them, walking as if there was no rain and there was no wind. And that was Clarence Clemons. I think one of the things missing in art education is the importance of creating a constituency for pessimism. All is not okay all the time. I find that I do my best work in periods of uncertainty and doubt. The one thing you can be certain of is failure in a painting. Every painting fails before it gets better. The other thing you can be certain of is that it will get better. My mom died 2 days ago after a horrible disease and a lot of suffering. I wasn't going to bring this up. I am not soliciting sympathy. I am okay. The reason I mention it is because It feels good to talk about it, and also because I consider all of you, the thousands of people who watch these, my friends. And I find that in these periods of difficulty, I do my best work. My career has never been going better. I have a book going into its 3rd printing, another on the way, shows scheduled through the next 5 years, a couple of other big projects I can't talk about yet. But there is this period of doubt and uncertainty, and not only do I welcome it, I orchestrate it. It's important to me. It's important that as a painter, I experience the entire rotation of life's challenges, the good and the bad. We are reporters, we are painters. We have to experience everything in order to report to the world accurately. I find that as I go through these phases, my work changes for the better, I believe. My approach to light has changed. It is less symbolic, as you might see in Turner, perhaps, and more naturalistic, as you might see in John Constable, to use 2 familiar examples. My obsession with shadow has never been more acute. I learned how to draw under the canopies of live oak trees in South Carolina. I am obsessed with the gradations of value and the road maps of shadows that occur under such trees. Even my approach to the arrangement of pictorial space, the illusion of space, it's much less oppositional as it was 25 years ago, and I believe of more a quiet resignation in the way that I approach the space that I create in my work. My dad died, so within 2.5 years I lost both of my parents to terrible diseases and suffering, and as an orphan, I find that I do think more and more about my mortality, and I can tell you with certainty that when I am taking my last breaths, I will not be lamenting, the sales that I never made, or could I have gotten one more review, or maybe I could have had a show in that other gallery. All I'm going to think about is, was I a loyal soldier? Did I move painting forward just a little bit? The things that truly matter. Painting has never been more valid than it is right now, and we are living in it. Too often success is confused with popularity. If you reach one person with your work, then you have changed the world. I think it's gross that a movie has to gross $100 million to be considered a hit. That's not the way that art works. We don't play to the arenas. Painting is for the parlor. Painting is for the backseat of a car. Painting is intimate. But if you can reach a single person, then you have reached everybody. So our job, as I see it, as I am learning, is to wake up every morning with a rage for life, and to go out on the boardwalk and walk in a straight line like there is no wind and there is no rain.